Yes. Hello. My name is Torbjørn Forthun from Kongsberg Drilling Management Solutions. Very interesting to being here. I've been visiting conference like this for almost 10 years now, and I hear there are some most of the comments is reflecting on how could we make the oil companies adapt these brilliant solutions that this industry of yours has brought forward. That's been an issue for all these years. I've seen from another perspective, coming from a drilling company actually. My background is actually from, or the company, Kongsberg Drilling Management Solutions, used to be a branch in oilfield drilling technology. And we have been working with integrated operations from a drilling contractor's perspective towards mostly Statoil and ConocoPhillips on the Norwegian continental shelves for many, many years. And I think I should start in 2003. We were awarded a drilling contract for fixed installations on Statoil in oilfield drilling. Since everybody has heard about the accident on Gullfaks and BP, there was almost a similar accident at Snorre B, Snorre A in 2004. It was a gas leak from the well. It's 100% parallel to actually what we see very often. It's not often we have the leaks, but we are near accidents very often. I've been blunt sometimes lately saying that it's just by coincidence or American environmentalists. This is actually so much in the media right now. It's not that many that speaks of these 11 persons who lost their lives in the Mexico Gulf, but very much is written about the oil spills. Gullfaks and Statoil is now under police investigation in Norway. It's not that these accidents or nearby accidents doesn't happen. It's more or less from a driller's perspective and a driller company's perspective, we see that these things actually happen quite often. And that is because of lack of planning. If we look upon these days we are in right now with post-Macondo and stuff, it's like the industry has been caught with their pants down. It's nothing more than that. It's a lack of use of good technology in terms of integrating information, sharing plans, sharing time estimates. On a drilling, on a rig, this is not that much of the highly advanced technology that's actually the issue. Very nice presentation here for how could a driller see things in a third view or 3D or 4D perspective. It would be very nice for the drillers to have this, but the problems for the drillers and the drilling contractors is actually not these issues. It's actually to have information at all. And real-time data is maybe not the most important thing during a drilling operation either. It's more right-time data. So to sort out the right type of data for a driller, that's maybe the biggest issue in order to prevent happenings like this we've seen. So Kongsberg Drilling Management Solutions is now a sprang from oilfield drilling. We have developed since 2004. We started developing a tool from the inside of oilfield drilling. It's a tool called Rig Manager. It's a complete suite of all disciplines engaged in drilling a well from a driller perspective or a drilling contractor perspective together with the drilling departments in the oil companies. And that is how could we share as much information as possible, and then again the important information. Oilfield drilling is maybe one of the, I think they still are the biggest drilling contractor in the North Sea if you take in both the fixed installations and the floaters. They work both on UK side and Norwegian side. My department has, since that happening in 2004, we have together with the IT department in Odfjell sat down together with the drillers in Odfjell Drilling, the roughnecks, the roaster boats, all involved in the drilling operation, together with the drilling department in the oil company. Sit down and try to identify the best possible solution for them to be as best possible informed. Around that, we have built up a consultancy in terms of how are we then to. One thing is to come up with new software, but how could we actually change these work processes that are involved in a drilling operation these days? A drill crew today is more or less the same crew that's been there since 1950. Hasn't been changed at all. Neither has the work processes. There's a lot of talk here today about work processes, but I don't know if there are many Americans around here today, or how many of you have actually worked offshore on a drill floor. I have not, but I've been working with this environment for now 7 years, interviewing them. And I grew up in Stavanger in the 60s and 70s. My mother worked at ConocoPhillips, or Phillips by then, so I grew up with the growth of oil industry in Sola in Stavanger. And in Norway, the politicians said that we want to learn from the American industry, and we want to develop our own industry in supplying oil and gas. What we still see, and I've been traveling a lot globally lately, what we see is maybe a wrong word to use, but it's the American imperialism in drilling. It's the American way of doing it, and it's been like this for all the time, and it's very hard to change. Kongsberg Drilling Management is also part of Kongsberg Group. It's a big Norwegian company, halfly owned by the Norwegian state. And my department is sorted under Kongsberg Oil and Gas Technologies. This happened in September, so I don't know all of Kongsberg Oil and Gas yet. But it's a solid technology provider where we're trying to build up embedded solutions. It's not software itself, it's embedded solutions. And that is quite important for us to say, because software in my term is just an enabler for improving the industry. I guess most of you have seen this slide. I bring it with me every time I speak. It's the use of available technology for cross-disciplinary collaboration within all business areas, independent of geographical and organizational locations. This is Statoil's definition of what then was called e-field, smart drilling, or whatever. And Statoil actually came up with the terms of integrated operations in Norway and decided this is what we are going to call it, and this is how we define it. It was based on this from this famous report from the OLF in Norway. This slide actually shows these different paradigm shifts we've had in the industry, and all paradigm shifts in our industry has come as a cause of the lifting cost per barrel. When it starts hurting, we have to change and develop something new. And the industry, as seen from Norway, mostly what I know is that we have to do something, and this integrated operation seems like a good thing. And there were some reports who calculate the net present value of implementing this integrated operations. I think this term actually has done worse than it has done good, because it's very easy to say, no, I don't believe in integrated operations. You don't have to understand it to say it, you can just say it. So we're talking about change and adapting new technologies. Integrated operations is a term, and it's very easy to just deny that this actually will work, especially when you meet drillers and roughnecks. This is a slide that I also use. You've seen it before. You had it up earlier today, and this is a picture from Ekofisk. I think it's EcoX. It's a morning meeting held during an investigation held in 2004. There was some small accident offshore, so they had it with these Visiver cameras. That was integrated in operations then. It was actually just a video conference, so it's nothing impressive about it actually. So you can see each other and not just only hear each other. The second generation, and this is a picture from oilfield in Bergen. I liked the comment earlier that the management then likes to take their customers down and show these environments and see, look how modern we are. It doesn't impress me, but it looks fancy, but it doesn't actually improve the operations if you don't change the way you actually do your operations. In this step 2, and this is especially towards Statoil, the managers, the company manager offshore, they said, okay, this office, they were allowed to listen and watch when they had their meetings, but they were not allowed to comment. They didn't want any influence from onshore. And it's not more than 3 years ago. This was on the operation from Snorre B. Snorre B was then in the portfolio of Statoil, maybe the worst performer in the Norwegian side for Statoil. Now Snorre B is the best performer all in the Statoil portfolio, and that is because they have changed the way they work. This team onshore, they have ensured the continuity between the shifts. They are much more proactive in terms of prepare the operation for the next day. They have access to all information concerned in the drilling operations, logistics, marine operations, well information. And the crew offshore, they can focus on actually staying on the drill floor and perform on the drill floor. They're not supposed to sit in the offices and work with their spreadsheets. So this is very good for the operations. The big contradiction here is that going from worst to best and actually being an outstanding performer. After 6 months, Snorre B has realized over 150 million NOK for Statoil only. Just in terms of on the maintenance side of critical equipment, the onshore team now ensures that there are no outstanding maintenance because they are on top of it. The offshore crew couldn't handle that earlier because of the workload they had. So the paradox here is that Statoil has only implemented this way of operate on 2 other installations. That is Sleipner, who is not drilling anymore, and Snorre A. The other people working, the other managers in Statoil, middle management, they can say that I don't believe in it because it's what they call integrated operations. So, and that is for a supplier outside now in Kongsberg, but earlier working closely towards Statoil in these matters. They said that we don't have time to do these changes. We don't have time to stop operations. We can't do piloting all the time on our operations because the demand for delivering from a corporate level is too high. So even though we have come up with some new operation models that are what some call generation 3, the resistance of change is too heavy in the oil and gas companies. And that is more or less because you have to implement this on the fly. And one have to understand that these companies, they work under strict contractual regimes. They have suppliers like Halliburton, Oilfield Drilling, or Seawell, or Schlumberger, or whatever. And they all are, they have different contracts, and they are to deliver on these contracts. So to put it all on a hold just to implement a new operation model, that is quite complicated. It's not about the technology, it's about the management perspectives towards it all. So everybody agrees that we have documented, and not only us, but there's several success stories around in the North Sea and also abroad that actually documents this is the way forward. But we hear management say we don't get any business benefits from integrated operations. And that is because they haven't tried it yet. It's overrated and it's just about video conferencing. You've heard this, all of you, I guess. But what we see is that the HSE is improving because of the onshore awareness. They can focus on quite other issues than the purely operational ongoing on the drill floor. The operation cost is extremely affected by this, by reducing it. It's like especially on the logistics sides, long lead items in drilling and drill tools are very expensive. So if you can optimize the logistics, you will be very well off. Increased production, not to mention, that's maybe the biggest part, and improved operational progress. So where lays the biggest conflict? And one of the things that stands out for me is actually this. It is the classic image of a tool pusher and an engineer, and this is actually where the conflict lays. I heard someone earlier today speaking of saying that we all have an iPhone, we use the web, the kids use Facebooks, I guess many tool pushers have Facebooks as well. But when it comes to believe that a software engineer with his perception of looking like this can actually help him doing better drilling, he wouldn't believe it. And then that's the other way around. Because this software engineer wouldn't believe that this and his perception of a tool pusher actually is capable of understanding what he's actually saying. So there's a big cultural gap here between the theoretical knowledge and the practical knowledge. So divide it a little bit more. You have the educational-based knowledge, and that's the general and drilling and well competence with a broad education towards it. Like me, I'm an academic in the petroleum economy, and I have some courses within drilling, but I'm not a specialized person, but I would say I'm educated. The category 1B is the specialized drilling and well competence. You have the civil engineers and PhDs, etc. Mostly working in the drilling departments and the planning departments, geophysics, the service companies. The experience-based knowledge, and this is what we see offshore and in the drilling companies. This is a generalized and specialized drilling and well competence. They couldn't finish school, so they ended up on the drill floor instead as a roastabout. And you have the specialized drilling and well competence. They have a little bit more education, and they have been they have maybe educated as driller. So you have two environments in the organization. The offshore personnel, you can say, then consists of experience-based personnel, and you have the onshore personnel, mostly then in the oil companies. You see, in a drilling company, the educated personnel are mostly working with the finance. And onshore is a mix then of mostly from the educated side. So when it comes to then the management and who you are actually meeting when you're introducing all these brilliant technologies and brilliant solutions in the drilling and well departments, I guess you will meet the people who have been recruited from the drill floor. They are roughnecks who have been good roughnecks for many years and have graduated themselves to be good manager, and then ends up onshore as a boss somewhere. And he doesn't believe in improvements, actually. We know what we do, and we've been doing it like this for 30 years. And that's a big, big challenge. So it's not like they are not willing to change, but you have to speak their language in order to make them change, make them understand. So when we say we deliver embedded solutions, we try to take the edge of the technology itself a little bit down. As we meet mostly on the strategic level with these companies. And we say you have some benefits here, you have operational benefits, and if you take a look on your contractual regime, there's a lot of things you can do, but you have to change your organization. On the operational level, you have the software, and you have the implementation and support services, and the ICT infrastructure. This is more what you see that Kongsberg oil and gas technology delivers solutions. What the management sees is actually that you have this lower layer here. That is the possibilities and the constraints. There's a lot of talk about standardization here earlier as well. You have in the IT sphere, but I don't think you can. Oil and gas is like a nirvana for engineers. There's not much standard solutions in any platforms in the North Sea, whether it's subsea or it's on top side on the rigs. It's tailor making every time, and it's very, very expensive. And for a management, they have their ambitions. In terms of integrated operations, they've heard of these big numbers presented by OLF and other institutions talking about these big gains. And they say, okay, we have to do something about this. We have to earn some money. They're all in it for the money. So are actually we. So how could we do this? And what they focus on is first and most the safe operations, the cost reduction, and the efficient operations. So if you then take the lower layer here and say you have the onshore side of it, you have offshore side, you have software and hardware. Within there lies the possibilities and the constraints. The whole startup portfolio, I think you have 2 operations with the same drilling package, and they have 36 drilling operations in the North Sea. So there's not much standardization. And if you're not aware of these possibilities and the constraints, you can't. There has to be tailor making also on the integrated operations side. There is no off-the-shelf solutions actually for this, either on the setup of the drill crews, the contracts between the suppliers, or whatever. So what we do when we say embedded solutions here, that we have to challenge the existing work processes and organization. It's not to take some fantastic technology and implement it in an existing way of working. You have to see that there's a huge potential of working otherwise in this environment. You have the big organization wheel here, and you have the sprocket, and you have the work process sprocket, and actually we said that the technology is the smallest one of these sprockets. So what you have to do in integrated operations, that is where lower the cost of lifting cost per barrel is, that you have to fill this gap. So this is where most of us standing on the outside supplying technology and consultancy service actually has to work together and find the right door to knock on. I think most of us knock on wrong doors all the time. In a global perspective, we see that within exploration and production, there's a huge amount of investments coming. I've just come back from a long stay in India, talking to some of both national oil companies and one of the other majors down there, and they are very interested in applying new technology because they don't want to do the same mistakes that we have done here in the North Sea. They've seen that the North Sea have been a laboratory for new inventions and new technology, and they want to sit there and buy top of the shelf. So in drilling, you can say it's an average, and that is actually 30 years statistics saying that the drilling spending is around 50% of all money spent. What we see, and this is also what kind of technology do we need, and what kind of technology do you need to present, and what kind of embedded solution do you need to present to the management in order to make them change. The highest column here is actually rig failure. And rig failure is mostly because of someone is doing something wrong. It's equipment failure due to bad maintenance or whatever. So downhole problems is actually quite small. And the impact of rig failure is also quite high for the oil companies and the rig contractors, because they're punished by downtime, and the rig companies, oil companies, they're punished with they have to extend the lease period of these rigs. And the day rates of a rig, you know that, it's quite high. And if you add up with the equipment and tools, you will see extensive sums. So this is actually how could you present a good value proposition for an oil company. That is actually to identify where your solutions will have the biggest impact for either the drilling contractor or the oil company. So these are also the sources then of global statistics then from the non-productive time. We talk a lot about benefit realization. I heard some Hubbard talked about how could we actually document and say that standardization is actually something that we should try to find what kind of triggers, how can we hook it up in the benefit realization for the companies here. What we see on a drilling operation, you have the quality cost, that's a variable, and you have the additional cost, and you have the fixed cost down there. The quantity benefits, it's reduced non-productive time through improved planning, improved material management, reduced stock and rental equipment cost. Technical availability is important, and reduced backlog and maintenance during critical operations. And moving tasks onshore. That is maybe an issue in a high-cost country like Norway to reduce the staffing on board a platform, but to be honest, I couldn't care less if it's 30 or 100, as long as the drill is produced as best as possible and more efficient way than it is today. It's not the number of people, actually. So it's a part of the cultural conflict in Norway, because when we talk about this, people are starting to getting afraid of their work. So if you take away this, I think you will find it will penetrate a little bit more easy when you meet the middle management and people on the operations. All these tasks actually has to be or needs to be supported by more advanced technology, more advanced solution when it comes to software. But we are not presenting the software solutions here. We are presenting that this is actually an upside for the companies. Same actually with the qualitative benefits. Improved well management and well planning. It's a brilliant solution you presented here earlier before me. Faster and more predictable drilling operations. This rig manager that I mentioned that we spent 7 years developing in oilfield I remember the first time we presented it to be used both for ConocoPhillips, Marathon and Statoil. They said, because we didn't want to use their reporting systems, we wanted the knowledge from our crews to be implemented in the databases for oilfield drilling. So when we had to plan the next operation, we could have some experience transfer and historical data to plan upon. But the oil company said, "Oh, you're crazy! You can't use the information gathered working for us in terms of planning for the other guys." And that is what the regime was like. So I flipped the question around and said, "Do you want me to use all the information we have gathered for ConocoPhillips and Marathon when I'm planning for Statoil?" "Yes, please," they said. So that ended that discussion actually. And oilfield drilling now has a huge database in terms of planning wells, and they have come up with much better plans. So the time estimates they do now when they plan a drilling operation, it's much more accurate. And I use the term accurate. It's not shorter. That's the term. It's the accurate. You can pick up some coffee. I can talk here for an hour. So the top 4 challenges facing oil companies globally is actually not how to implement new technology as such. The increasing unit cost for mature fields, that is very crucial for them. Increased cost for drilling and slower progress. The meters drilled per day is exactly at the same level as in 1970s. And we have all thought that this industry is technology leading, and it's fantastic how much inventions that have been done and achievements, but we're still not drilling faster than we did in the 70s. One can say that this is because it's more safer and more, but taking that away is still not good enough, definitely. The oil recovery is too late, too much left behind, and the non-productive time is increasing. As you can see, I guess all of you think, okay, I have solutions to help them with that. But this is a value proposition the oil companies really understands. So that in terms of knocking on the right doors and talking about the solutions here, again, it's a contradiction. An exciting conference like this. How many actually is involved with drilling operations from an oil company perspective here? 1. I think it's all technology providers actually. It's like speaking to the congregation for me. We see the same people every time, and that's a pity for the industry. So maybe the next task in the next conference, next task for the organizer is to get more oil companies, force them in here and tie them to the chairs and listen. I dropped some cases here, and I just go into the. This is also mentioned today. It's the bird view perspectives. The proprietary of the solutions of the service provider is also a problem for an oil company. Everybody talks about integrated operations sitting in their own silos. That's a contradiction in terms. Yeah, so need to integrate both horizontally and vertically in the industry. So that's been mentioned earlier today, and that is actually quite important. My conclusion is that there is a need for a contractual regime. We have to come up with more incentive-based solutions to put on the right drivers for the suppliers. As a rig contractor, if you hire out a rig for $450,000 a day, you're not interested in reducing the day spent. Definitely not. You're interested in keeping this contract last for a long time. Same goes for the equipment. And again, the quality of the uptime, and that goes for the solutions presented by most of you people here, is mostly focused on the downtime, to punish the rig contractors or drilling contractors for the downtime. There's no focus on the quality of the uptime. Could we actually run in 200 kilometers per hour instead of 50 kilometers per hour if we had the right technology for it? No one asked that question. Yeah, be aware of that technology is an enabler, it's not the solution. That is very important. And the solution actually lies in the will to change and the ability to implement. And that is where the cultural gap is. So one needs to understand this cultural challenge. If you're not aware that you're actually talking about people with as I showed you, you have the roustabouts and the roughnecks and the engineers. This is actually in between there we actually works. So I often say this, is there anyone here who knows a company industry that's not in it for the money? I don't think so. So a bigger cake gives everybody a bigger slice. So let's make a bigger cake. That's the whole idea. So.
Thank you very much indeed, Torbjørn. I think if you can join us in the panel after the